Okay, welcome to Randolph and Martin's Friday Night Sports Talk. We have a good lineup tonight of no guests, but we're talking boxing, the massive fight on the weekend of Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders. Lots of talking points there. Man City becoming champions and the rest of the Premier League fighting it out for second place. And then obviously the British Lions was announced this week. Some surprise choices, some obvious choices, and we can talk about that as well. Welcome, Mart. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Just working and moving furniture again this week. How about yourself?
Yeah, just I say watch the boxing. Got up at 4 a.m. on Saturday night to watch the boxing, or Sunday morning, and had a long one. Then watched the fight, and then went straight to golf. So it was.
I was going to say, did you manage to make your tea time? Okay,
Yeah,
were you
yeah, yeah. It was a long.
bit red-eyed on the first green?
To be fair, I was wide awake. It's in the afternoon when you start floundering. But yes, you see the fight?
Yeah, I did. I had the UFC card on my laptop and had the fight on DAZN on the telly, so I sort of switching between the two. A few pullouts on the UFC card, so it wasn't that great, but Canelo Saunders was absolutely fantastic. You know, the whole thing, like you said last week, Cinco de Mayo weekend, it's an absolute spectacle. I don't know how I feel about national anthems for the boxing, though. Still think that's a bit weird. But you know, at the Olympics, it's different. You're representing your country, but you know, the mariachi band was great. Saunders walk as well. It was just 73,000 people booing him walking into well, there's a few Brits over there, you know. I wonder, did you see the thing of the guy who got the tattoo on, I think, his back? And
Yeah,
it
with
was,
the head, Canelo's head.
I wonder how his head was was the next morning, you know.
What a donut! What a donut! Yeah, the build up. I thought, obviously it's in Dallas, and it had all the makings. It's a unification fight. There's only Caleb Plant who's got the other belt. Yeah, the weeks build up with Tyson Fury out there and playing up to the crowd. It's just massive spectacle, brilliant. Atmosphere. Uh, for me, so I like Billy Joe Saunders. I think he's a character. Some of the stuff that he was coming up with, playing up to some of the commentators, and I just thought it was funny. There's no malice in it. He's not being, when you're world champion, you can be arrogant. They're totally different characters. You've got Canelo, who's 199% focused. He had a golf chipping range installed in his hotel. So him and his, I think he's got a kid that was there playing golf with him because he loves his golf. Very patriotic Mexican. So in his walking, he has the big band there playing with him as well. And I just thought it was just a contrast of styles. You've got him there, like that, and then you've got Billy Joe Saunders, just like a practical joker. Brilliant fighter in his own right. But yeah, the build-up for me was good. There's no trash talk. They had their face-offs, and there was, a bit of aggro, but it's nothing, compared to Chisora throwing tables at David Hay or, stupid stuff like that. They were, they respected each other. They knew that they were, both good fighters. And I thought the build-up to it was really good. What did you think of of before the fight?
Yeah, the main thing that impressed me, I thought, since Canelo's been speaking English a bit more, I thought especially in this fight during some of the chats with the press and the face-off, and even afterwards when there was Andre that walked into the post-fight press conference, he's trash talking a bit more. He's sort of coming out of his shell a bit. He's getting a bit more confident with English, speaking it a bit more. So, he's already a global superstar. But you say it in any sport, really. I think a lot of the times, if people want to cross over into different markets, it helps if they speak the language. So that's it's another thing that's going to benefit him. But sometimes fighters can get lost in all the pageantry of a big event like that. But like you said, when someone's 200+% focused like Canelo is, that's never going to happen. I thought Billy Joe Saunders did very well not to get caught like a rabbit in the headlights. Until the stoppage, I think he was very much in the fight. He probably down on the scorecards, maybe not as harshly as some of the judges thought, but I thought the middle rounds, especially, he was coming into it. Like, how did you see the fight as a whole?
I thought from the beginning that Canelo is never going to be overawed now against any fighter or any occasion. He's been a pro since he was 16, 17. I don't know. I think he's probably 26, 27 now. To be fair, I haven't looked, but I don't think he's in his prime now, and he's beaten, a list of world-class fighters. As we mentioned last week, the week before, he lost against Mayweather, but he'd had 40 odd fights, but he was 23 years old, and everybody he'd only fought Sugar Shane Mosley. So to be thrust into, I think it was probably a Vegas fight. It was too early. Whereas since then he's fought everybody, beaten everybody. Obviously the Golovkin fights were close, and he lost one of them. But I think he's gone on another level since then. The problem with that now is if he does fight Golovkin for a third fight, Golovkin's about 38. So if Canelo does beat him, then it's a case of, right, has he beaten him because he's improved, or has he beaten him because Golovkin has aged by 3 or 4 years, or is it a bit of both? So for me, it's that's his only question really that he hasn't answered. So to come into this fight against the world champion, it's not unifying it because there's still another belt left. I don't know why they kept saying that on Saturday night. To unify it, you've got to have all the belts. Well, Plant's got the other belt, so he hasn't got them all. But for him to fight him now, we can talk about Andrade's after, gate crashing it and Canelo's English in a bit. But I just think that for me, after watching the Saunders fight, I thought Saunders would probably outbox him because he's a southpaw. He's undefeated. He's been very good since being in the Olympics. He's a very good amateur. Took the biscuit in amateurs, and he's come in. He's beaten everybody. My only two things that worry me about Saunders is one, has he trained hard enough? Because we've seen him in previous fights, and he's carrying a bit of weight. He doesn't look fit, whereas in this fight he looked spot on. But the other worry is, in the last 3 or 4 years, is inactivity. Canelo's fighting 3 times a year, even if it's lockdown. So that's not an excuse. And Saunders is fighting on average once every 14, 15 months, maybe something like that. So I thought that's a problem, because it doesn't matter how much you spar and practice, your ring rust when you're in front of 70,000 against a beast is going to be a problem. So on the fight, I thought he started first 2 rounds as tentative, but Canelo was just forward, trying to throw power punch. I don't think he threw a non-power punch. Every punch he threw was a power punch. Whereas Saunders, his jab was decent. His movement, which I knew his movement was going to be good, and he's awkward because he's southpaw. So first few rounds could have gone either way. But then from then on, I thought that he caught Canelo with a couple of good punches, but just walked straight through them. He was constantly on the front foot. And I think if you're a boxer coming forward and 100% that this guy is not going to hurt you, then you're just going to keep coming forward. And he hit him with some, rights to the body, some lefts to the body, which I thought he was a bit naive, I think, Saunders as well, on two counts. One is he was, dropping his hands, which, you're confident and you're you're a world champion, fair play, but you're going to get caught out. And then when he, finally did get caught out, and you could see it come in, it was 2 rounds before, to avoid certain hooks, he was ducking his head. And obviously Canelo he's a 45, 50 fight veteran. He's gonna spot these things, and he's probably seen it in some of his previous fights. And I think probably in round 4 or 5, he started throwing uppercuts. And he missed with a couple of huge uppercuts. But then you could see if Saunders keeps ducking and he does catch him with an uppercut, then he's going to cause problems. And I think what did happen was he's got this new punch, Canelo, that I've seen in the last 2 or 3, whereas he goes to throw a right straight and then changes it into an uppercut. Or another one, he fakes throwing a jab, and then rather than throwing a jab straight, he takes it across to the left and then throws an uppercut. There's 2 or 3, and he's only been doing it in his last 2 or 3 fights. It's like he's seen somebody on YouTube doing it. He's practiced it and he's catching people with it. And he caught him with that punch, bang on the eye. In round 8, I think round 8, when Saunders was starting to get a bit tired. Because if you're running for 8 rounds, and just throwing counter punches and, you're running away from a beast, you're going to get caught. And, I thought it wasn't 50-50. For me, I had him probably 5-3 up, or if it was the 8th round, he was winning that round. So, 5-3 for the end of that round for me, because it did get to the end of the round, didn't it? And he just didn't come out. But what was your assessment of the first 5-6 rounds? What did you think?
Yeah, I thought, I think the first round, not many, was about 9 punches were landed or so. It was very tentative, like you said. But Canelo was the aggressor in the first 2, but I thought Saunders was utilising his movement well. There was once or twice when Canelo trapped him on the ropes, but I think the once when he got in the corner, he pushed him off. Just quite smart ring general. Is it generalship, they say? Can't think of the But that's the thing with Canelo. He's just got the boxing IQ to spot your little movements over a few rounds. And it's probably why he's quite tentative in the first round or 2 in most of his fights, because he's just reading what the other fighter's doing, trying to make those decisions, which way they're going to lean, sort of tendencies like dropping the hands and the shots to the body, the training videos we were seeing in the week leading up to it are absolutely fit. I know he's hitting a bag and it's in an isolated room, but imagine getting hit by that. And I think Saunders was starting to tire a bit, but he had his moments, I don't really think he could have had a chance on the scorecards, really, sort of on the Cinco de Mayo in a Canelo fight. But I don't think he lowered his stock any by how he performed. And I just can't see anyone beating Canelo, to be honest with you. I was sort of impressed with how quick he was early in the fight as well, because I don't think he's really known for his foot speed, Canelo, is he? But sort of his movement in his upper body is sharp as ever, and his head movements improved so much, like you've said. It was probably, rounds 5 to 7 where Saunders came a bit more into it. He did tighten his defense up a little bit more, maybe, I think. But he was getting caught with the bigger power shots, and he's not really known as a puncher, is he? And he's not gonna knock Canelo out, I don't think. I think the stoppage as well, because it was in between rounds. It was Mark Tibbs that made the decision. I think, if he was it fractured orbital, he's got broken cheekbone as well. That's what, 6 to 8, probably more than that. It's like a year layoff, maybe longer than that. I don't really. I did hear one of the podcasts saying it's actually a dental surgery you have to get, not like a sort of facial surgery, because the way they do the orbital, they have to go in through, they have to take some teeth out to put the plate in. So not that I know much about dental surgery, but
I just think that I agree with what you said there. He was, Saunders' movement is good, but when you're coming up, this for me, there's levels in every sport, and you can be a world champion, but then you can be, a level above the world champion. You've got Saunders, you've got all the other world champions. Obviously he's got them all now, hasn't he? But he moved up and fought, Kovalev. He's fought everybody, and he is a level above all the other world champions. Yeah. As you said, his head movement. He just seems to be improving and improving and improving. He says he's got the best coach in the world, but I think all all boxers say that about their coaches. But his head movement in the last 5 or 6 fights, say he fought Amir Khan, and then I can't remember who he fought before then, but I just think that it's just improved. It's just improved so much. His head movement more than anything else. So when your head movements improve that much, you can. It allows you to do more things. So it allows you to come forward more. So he's coming forward. He's avoiding 70-80% of people's punches, because when you look at Saunders fighting against Benitez, and he's fought quite a few who you would have thought would have caused him problems. Chris Eubank Jr. But they didn't. But I do think that probably one of the main things is he's just got such a chin that it allows him to come forward. And even if he does get caught, because I saw footage of, there was one big left hook that Saunders caught him bang on the chin, and he just didn't, he was coming forward, he caught him bang on the chin, and then he just kept coming forward. So if you're the opposition and you're like, Jesus, I've just caught him with a flush one, spark on the chin, elbow up, came through with a punch, and he didn't move. How else can I win the fight? When the guy is coming forward, for 3 minutes or for 12 rounds, for 36 minutes, he's coming at you, and you can't slow him down by catching him bang on the chin. And when you look at him after the fight, he had he had a mark on both his eyes, Alvarez. So he did catch him with some punches, but absolutely no effect on him whatsoever. But when it came to the 8th round, he caught him with that punch, and I've seen some stuff on social media, by certain boxers who've only had 2, 3, 5 fights, and I wouldn't have quit and I wouldn't have done that. Well, it absolutely made me laugh. And to be fair, I replied to one of them. Say one of them was a fighter who's had 4 or 5 fights and said that they wouldn't have quit and this, that, and the other, but they weren't being faced. Well, number one, they didn't have a broken cheekbone and a broken eye socket. And number two, they weren't being punched by, Canelo Alvarez. And obviously it's come out since that he's got, I think it was 3 broken bones in his cheek, broken eye socket. Couldn't see out of his eye, even though his eye was partially open. He couldn't see because obviously he's probably got bones floating around in his face. So it was the right decision, 100% right decision to pull him out. And if he does come back and fight again, which he may not, is he ever going to be the same fighter that he was before? When you look at a perfect example would be Kell Brook. Yeah. So I don't know. Brook broke his eye socket against Golovkin. Again, we're talking levels. Yeah. Brook was I think he was a 2-time world champion, and he fought Golovkin in London. I was there. I went to watch it, and Golovkin was just it was like a man against David against Goliath. Is a man against a boy. Took him apart, broke his eye socket, and then he fights Errol Spence. Again, a guy a level above him. Broke his eye socket again, or the other one. And that's it. It's end of your career. So for Saunders to go from being undefeated and never lost a fight, I don't think he's ever been knocked down, to having his face literally smashed up, I'd be surprised if number one, if he comes back, and number two, if he's at all anywhere near the fighter that he was before.
Yeah, that's just reminded me actually who was talking on the podcast. It was Dominic Engel, because I think Kell Brook trained with him, because they're both Sheffield, aren't they? Because he was saying after you fracture your one orbital, I don't know the reason behind it, but the surgeon who did the surgery told them it's the one on the other side goes weak for some reason. I don't know why that's to do. I don't know if it's because of the impact on one side of your face, it's going to maybe crack or weaken the other. But yeah, if I think he did fracture the other one in the Spence fight, or he might have had the hematoma come out on the one side and then fracture the same one. But That's the thing. Saunders has made so much. I think he's made quite a decent beat. Well, he made shitload from this fight, but apart from that, he's had some big paydays. Like I imagine the Eubank Junior fight, even though I think he was a bit younger in his career, but he took him 200 over 250k apparently from his last bout, and he was. I don't think he was on the main card. He was on the undercard, or he was quite early, wasn't he? And but he's always going to get that because of his name. I think Saunders is 32 now, maybe. I think he's early in his 30s. So it's a case of, I think, if he wants to come back, whether his trainers think he's going to, think he should come back as well, because he's clearly got a lot of trust in them. If that he's going to sort of, he hasn't really said anything that he's upset with them pulling out of a fight. I think Wilder was quite irritated at his trainer for throwing the towel, and they had a big falling out. So, but
that was Tibbs as well, wasn't it? That was Tibbs as well. Mark, wasn't it? Wasn't it the same trainer?
I'm not too sure. That rings a bell. It might have been.
I think it was when he said his name.
Mark Bronstad's? No, I'm thinking of someone. No, I think it might have been Mark Tibbs, actually, maybe, yeah.
I think it was, but at the end of the day, he said he can't see, and Canelo said when I hit him, I just felt like he basically broken his face. Yeah. He's dipped his head into a punch that's come in, so it's like a double whammy. But no, he's pulled him out. 100% correct to pull him out. But what you said there about is, I don't know about the weakened cheekbone, but if you break an arm, then when your arm is fixed, it can come back stronger. But you're not getting hit in the arm; you're getting hit in directly the same place. When you're a boxer, you're getting hit in the face. You're not getting hit in the leg. You're not getting hit in your ass. You're getting hit on either a body punch for the ribs, where ribs can heal pretty quickly, and pretty well. But when you're getting hit, across just below your eye, time and time again, once it breaks, that's it. It's going to get fixed and it'll heal, but it's not going to heal stronger than it was before, because you're getting directly hit in the same area. So, it could be career ending, and I don't no idea how much he made from the Canelo fight, but it's going to be big bucks, because anyone that fights, and it's an undisputed, you're a world champion, so you're going to be demanding, a few million quid, I would have thought, for a fight like that. You're not a heavyweight, the Blue Riband event where, Fury and Joshua will be getting 70 million or something. But, he's made some good money from it, set his family up, but it's a confidence thing as well. You come back from something like that, you're not going to want to try and get hit in the face. You're sparring, you're not going to be in full sparring because you don't want to get hit in the face. You'll be wearing a boxing cap and maybe even protective thing around your eye for quite a long time. So it's a tough one to take for him. But he's not going to argue about getting pulled out. He knows that it was the right decision. So Canelo. So after the fight, then obviously Saunders went missing because he was in hospital. But Canelo, at his press conference, I've heard him speak a little bit of English, but I know he's been learning. And the Andrade coming in to the press conference afterwards, calling him out, was very funny. Hearing him speaking proper English in his high voice, Mexican high voice for a beast, was funny. But it's plain to see that he's not going to fight him for a title. So who would you think would be his next, 2 or 3 challenges at middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight? Who could challenge him in any of those categories?
That's the thing. I don't really know, to be honest with you. I don't know that much about Caleb Plant. I think he's undefeated. He's got like 12 finishes and 21 fights, something like that. But I don't know if he's fought anyone I know, really. Andrade, I don't think he could get past Canelo either. I think he's got a style that could maybe trouble him, but seeing how much he struggled against Liam Williams when he did manage to clip him once or twice. You know, if you get hit like that by Canelo, you're gonna be hearing the 8 count trying to fully scramble up to your feet, aren't you? So that's the thing. Maybe a move up to light heavyweight might be the only thing that tests him, because how tall is he? Do you know? I think, would he be quite short for a light heavyweight?
I don't think he's very big. I don't think he's. I don't know. I'd be surprised if he's got to be under 6 foot. He just doesn't look very tall, does he? You know.
But his power carries up, because he finished Kovalev, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was early or late, but he finished Kovalev. So
it was quite late. It's quite late.
Late, yeah. Well, his power carries late into the fight as well. You'd think as well by that imagination. So yeah, maybe try and. I think he'll definitely want to unify next, because it's the IBF that Plant's got. So I don't know why they, like you said, why they're referring to it as unification, or like the undisputed super middleweight title. I think I want to clear up first.
He fought nobody. That Caleb Plant. He's fought Caleb Truo. He fought him in January and won unanimous decision. But before that, he hasn't fought. Not a single name that I've ever heard of.
I think he's defended the belt maybe 3 times, but like you said, that he's fought anyone I know. So it's maybe another Yildirim case, or Liam Smith, Callum Smith. Sorry, maybe another one of those rabbit in the headlights.
It's pretty good. He's supposed to be a decent fighter, but looking at his record there, he hasn't. You know, he's quite a big guy as well. But he's. I just don't think he hasn't fought anybody, so we'll have to see on that one. But yeah, if he's moved up, if he does move, Andrade. That look, even just judging by the press conference, he said, you're only looking for a payday, and Andrade's fought nobody, so I don't think you fight him. I think one disappointing thing was because one of the names on the next level up would have been Bivol. And I watched Bivol fighting last week, and he was poor. He's meant to carry this big punch, and the guy that he fought, he fought a British guy. Can't remember his name. He fought a British guy last week. I watched it. He was poor. He hasn't fought for a year, but I think he actually went to points. It might have been a 10-rounder or 12-rounder, but it went to points. Okay. No, it must have been a 12-rounder because he was going for Bivol's title. But he held his own, the guy that fought him, the British guy, and he was disappointing. I don't think he would trouble Canelo at all. The only one which I've been watching his career for probably the last 3 or 4 years is R2 Bertabiev. Very good fighter. Absolute beast of a bloke, massive puncher. Because I think it's, 175 maybe. Even though Canelo's a big puncher, the two interesting things are, I watched him against. He fought a British guy a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago. I think his name's Callum Johnson. At light heavyweight, and Johnson actually knocked him down in the second round. Mm-hmm. And it was like massive wake-up call, because Johnson's known for being a huge puncher. He's I think he'd won most of his fights up until then, very quick stoppages, so that he's got a chance here, and he knocked him down in the first couple of rounds, and it's like, massive shock, this could be a huge upset. And then I think the next round, or the next 2 rounds, Bertabiev knocked him down 2 or 3 times, because his punch power is just incredible. He's like Canelo, but 10 pounds heavier. So that would be, for me, if anyone can knock down Canelo, it would be him. It'd be very interesting, because then the only question mark on this Bertabiev, if he's been knocked down by Johnson, could Canelo knock him down? But if Canelo's moving up 12 pounds, that's going to negate his power slightly. But I think light heavyweight, he beat Kovalev, and it's the same weight. So if he does move up, because cruiserweight bizarre reason, is above light heavyweight.
Yeah.
So light heavyweight,
that-
heavyweight, we'll stick cruiserweight in between. Yeah, which is just bizarre. So if he does move up to the light heavies, I would prefer him to fight Bertbiev than Bivol, so we can actually have a proper challenge to see how, if somebody can knock him out. For me, that would be the interesting one.
Yeah, I think there's just no one at super middleweight, really, isn't there? He's basically unified the title already. Once he fights planned, that'll be in the back. Yeah,
is it David Benavidez? I think he's a huge puncher.
I've heard his name mentioned a few times. Yeah, is he? He's not another one of De La Hoya's stable, is he? Or the Golden Boy?
He's two-time WBC super middleweight champion. So that would be the next level up for Canelo. 6 pound gain, whatever. He's had 24 fights, but I'm just checking now. I think it's nearly all knockouts. 21 of them have been knockouts. Again, not really. There's no massive names, and he beat Dirrell because there's two brothers, weren't there? Dirrell brothers, Andre Dirrell and Anthony Dirrell. He beat Anthony Dirrell for the title back in 2019, and he's had 2 fights since. One in 2020, one in 2021. 2 in 2021. He's fighting. When's he fighting? He's fighting the 28th of August. But yeah, again, it's one of those. He hasn't really fought anyone, but he's got. If you have a look on the YouTube, David Benavidez, he's a huge puncher, and again, he could worry. It's one of those you see huge punchers knock out everybody left, right, and center like Golovkin, but then when you come to fight Canelo, you hit him with your sledgehammer of a punch, and it doesn't really affect him. So another good one would be that one, or another fight against Golovkin. You've beaten him once, you've drawn against him once. Both of them very controversial. Have the third fight. Have the Barrera against Eric Morales trilogy. Which it's in folklore. Some of these trilogies that were so good. Have the third one. Set the record. Have you improved that much in the last 36 months that you can beat him fair and square? And that's the other option for Canelo.
Yeah, one of the Charlo brothers, do they fight at super middleweight, or do they only go up to middleweight? I can't remember, because I think one of them.
Well, they've got to be super, haven't they? Because Canelo, they're world champions, and Canelo holds all the belts, so they must be. They both won't fight each other, and I think they're both. Was it Jamel Charlo and
Jamal?
Charlo
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they're both.
I think they might both be middleweights, because people were mentioning them with Andrade. So I think
no, they're light middleweight.
Oh, they're light middle.
I was going to say, but they can't be middleweight champions because Canelo holds all the belts apart from one.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So they've got to be. But I think they're smaller. They're both light middleweight, and to move up. To move up 6 or 7 pounds when Canelo's jumping to super middle 7, so that's like a stone heavier than what they are, and light middle, which is a stone and a half. When he comes back down, he still carries the power. They won't fight. They won't move up and fight him. They'd be daft too. They may as well just stay there, rule that weight. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see who he fights next, because he loves fighting, and that probably didn't take a lot out of him physically. So he'll probably be back in September. In fact, I think Hearn mentioned September. So that'll be
4 months. He's fighting 3 times a year. Sounds about right. So
yeah. So I'm sure he mentioned September, so it'll be just interesting to see.
That was his last. Is he a free agent again now? Because he only had a 2-fight deal with Matchroom. Was it up until?
I think it'll probably just.
They'll probably just roll on again.
The way that they were talking today together, he'll be there for another 2 or 3 fights, I think. And then, while we're on that subject of Hearn, he's announced it's either going to be August the 7th or the 14th in Saudi Arabia. I've been looking at flights, 500 quid. for a flight.
Not so
Just have to see. Yeah, just cheap, it's cheap. But you don't know whether it's going to be in. Where is it now? One of them is Jeddah, and I can't remember the other place in Saudi Arabia because there's two airports. So they were around about 500 quid for a flight. But it's a case of, can you get a ticket, and are we allowed to fly there? Because there's nowhere else to. You can't go on summer holidays this year. Unless you're going to Portugal or Iceland. There's nowhere else to go. Unless you're going on, holidays in this country, then a lot of people are saving a lot of money, doing their gardens out and their houses out. So I think there'll be a lot of take. If it's only 400 or 500 quid to get across to Saudi, with a hotel for 3 or 4 days, August is going to be boiling. So you can do a bit of sunbathing out there because there's not a lot in Saudi apart from the desert. To look at. There's no history there. There's no history there unless you want to go to look at a 50-year-old oil rig. It'd be we won't bother talking about the fight because we'll go into that closer to the time. But yeah, it's there now. It's there. It's Hearn was saying he's been frustrated because I think it's something like is it Fury wants to see proof of funds from a bank to show that the money's there, and you've signed a contract with one of the biggest promoters on the planet. You're fighting in Saudi Arabia, who've got more money than anywhere else on the planet. I think your money's safe, Fury. I think you're not going to be.
It's not like it's some shady guy, some shady boxing promoter from a gym around the back alley in Manchester that's offering you a dodgy fight contract, coffee stained and everything. It's an oil nation. It's like 75 million, I think they've bid to host the fight there, so they're going to be getting paid handsomely, the pair of them. I think it's a bit of a shame it's not going to be in the UK, but they're only going to probably have a restricted capacity if it's August, so they're going to want a full arena of fans for something like that. So
but it's a 2-fight deal.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe by the time the second one's up, and they can have probably a full arena by then, even if it's testing people and whatnot. But it'll still be something to watch anyway.
You're looking at next year, then, aren't you? So August, if one of them is. If Fury gets knocked out badly in the first 6 rounds, then he's going to be wanting February, March of next year. He's not going to be wanting November, December. So, you're talking 9-10 months away. And by then, they've had a stadium this week where the Brit Awards, where everybody's testing on the way in, and they had a full capacity there. And it'll gradually get, but by then, it'll be one of those, I think he's mentioned it before, Carl Froch fight in front of 80,000 people at Wembley. So
just the once on the broadcast on a Sunday morning.
And so I think it'll be a capacity at Wembley, 90-odd thousand, or the Principality down in Cardiff, and it'll be a full house, with all the Sky rights, but it's a 2-fight deal. So I presume, because they want to get it done. They want the first one done, and it can't be done in COVID rules in the UK. So take it to Saudi Arabia, where they've got all the money. Restrictions aren't there. I've seen adverts on the TV in the last 6 months about summer holiday in Saudi Arabia. That come to us. Our arms are open. You can come to our country. So checkbooks are open as well. So it makes sense. It makes sense. Especially when it's a 2-fight deal, and the second one 100% has got to be in the UK, because there'll be so much demand for it. Hearn will do the right thing, because they'll have probably made all the money from the first fight that they can take. The promoters can take a cut and have it in Wembley then for the second fight. That's my take on it. What do you think?
Yeah, that's something I was maybe thinking while you were talking there. They might sort of be using that money to set up a bigger spectacle in the UK, or if they're going to be testing what was it? The Principality was like 80-something thousand. They had, was it 85,000? Oh no, because is Carl Froch the record 80,000? Or Joshua Parker did more, didn't it? Was it like 86, something like that? So if you have to test that many people, even someone like Eddie Hearn, that's going to cost an arm and a leg. So, I understand why he's taking it there. And 500 quid to fly to Saudi Arabia when you sort of haven't been able to go away for 18 months, nearly no, not 18 months. I can't remember how long pandemic's been going on for, but people are going to want to travel. And boxing fans, especially boxing fans in the UK, are going to travel over somewhere like that where you
Exactly.
can go to. And yeah, I just really excited it's been put together finally, because was it February they first started discussing it properly, saying they were negotiating and whatnot. It's been dragging out for a few months now, and they had a bit of a back and forth 2-3 days ago on Twitter, and then Eddie Hearn finally said they'd signed it and whatnot, and we've got the green light now. So
I just think that it's not very often that you get fights come up that get made. You got Crawford against Spence, two best fighters on the planet in that way. Is that going to come up? Mayweather, Pacquiao. There's been that many that have come and gone. Kell Brook, Amir Khan on a British side of things. All that beef and it never comes off. So for this one, two British fighters, they're both in their prime. You haven't got one fighter who's 36. You've got two fighters who can go on for another 7-8 years. They're in the prime. Whether Fury's ever been in his prime, because he just, he lives life to the full. Two very good characters in different ways, two very good boxers in different ways. The closer that we get to it, the more excited we're going to become, and the debates on who's going to win will intensify. And there's, to be fair, there's pluses and minuses for both. Again, we'll go over that in closer to the time, but even just talking about it now, it's like I just want to get a flight sorted and go and watch something. That's something special. Get over there a couple of days before, take it all in. It's going to be fantastic.
So when is it? Ever the two best heavyweights in the world are both from the UK, and they're fighting to take home all the belts and unify the title. It's just it's going to be such a big occasion, and like you said as well, it's sort of two fairly split fan bases as well. So it's going to be like another Brexit situation where this who's going to win. But yeah, we can if it's in August, got a couple of months to discuss that. I'm sure I'll have a bit of back and forth as well on Twitter. You know what Fury's like. I think Joshua's a bit more calm and collected, in fairness, and always seems to be a bit more respectful, but I do quite enjoy Fury's personality, like Billy Joe Saunders. He's just a bit of a character and doesn't take the whole thing too seriously, but he's got the ability to back it up as well, and he has done on multiple occasions. But same with Joshua, he's always been sort of calm, calculated, understated, but he says he's going to knock your head off, and apart from Andy Ruiz, he has. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Right, if you move on to the Premier League then.
Yep.
Man City, champions. We knew they were going to win. It was just a matter of time. They won it months ago, really. United set out. There's been a bit of debate on this in the last 24 hours that they 10 changes against Leicester. But at the end of the day, when you're playing 5 games in about 12-13 days, you've got a 48-hour turnaround from their last game to Leicester, and then what was it? They're playing again. They're playing again on Thursday. They're playing again on Tuesday, and then they got a Sunday, and then a Wednesday where they're playing in the Europa final. They're pretty much second. They've got a bit of daylight between themselves and Leicester. So why would you risk? You've played pretty much full strength side 48 hours before. You're not going to play them again against a team who they're far enough behind you to not have to worry about them. Leicester won. It cements their place really in third. I can't see anybody catching them in third now. I think the people that were vocal about it last night were teams who were in 5th, 6th, or 7th, like Liverpool, because it's like, if Liverpool win their games in hand and Leicester had lost, then there could have been a chance of them catching them. But for me, it's, anyone, it's City first, United second, Leicester third, and then you've probably got 4, so you've got 5, 6, 7, you've probably got 4 teams chasing 4th spot for the Champions League. Everton, I think Liverpool play United tomorrow, and if United have a full strength side out and beat Liverpool, Everton win their game in hand, they go above Liverpool. So the fourth spot is way up for grabs. But if we just talk about obviously City first, they've won it. They've won. They've got the FA Cup final. They've got the Champions League final, and they've got Leicester, Brighton, and Everton. They got 3 league games left. What are your thoughts on City?
Like you said before, they've just ran away with it months ago, and they've just kept going. Never looked like stopping. Just the FA Cup, and they would have had the clean sweep probably at this rate. I don't know how much the last 2 fixtures against Chelsea, so the FA Cup semi-final and the one, was it Sunday night? Or was it Saturday night when they lost 2-1? I don't know how much they bode towards how they're going to do in the final, but I think they made a few changes. Like with United, with the amount of fixtures you've got in the next couple of days, with it being the business end of the season, you are going to make changes. I thought, I don't think City played badly against Chelsea on whatever night it was. They did have a chance to go 2 up. I don't know if you saw Aguero's penalty. It reminded me of when you get the new FIFA game and you're trying to figure out the set piece controls. You actually hold the wrong bumper and you just give it to the keeper. Yeah, I think Sterling got the first. He pinched off Aguero though, bit unlucky, bit of a one of those annoying quick plays on a football pitch where you're trying to tap it and he takes it off you. I think Chelsea had 2 or 3 goals given offside as well. So I think City play, their high line was getting exposed a bit on the break. I think Werner's played quite well in that game, even though he's had maybe 2 goals. I think he had 2 goals ruled offside. I can't remember. I think Abraham had one as well. But the way they're playing at the minute, especially how they did against Madrid, I think they could give City a problem in the final. But yeah, like with United, they rested a few players, and Pep, he's a master tactician. He knows how to get a result out of his players. And one of the interesting things I heard when I was listening to one of the interviews he did, I think it might have been after the League Cup final, he just doesn't really see winning as like a big occasion anymore. He just sees it as like a normal thing that they do. And when you've won that many trophies and been that consistent over the years like he has, you've just got the winning formula and you get used to it, and sort of greatness imparts greatness on other players, and they have to raise each other to the level of him. And yeah, I think they've been well deserved to win the title this year, considering a lot of it they haven't really played with a striker. And they've been absolutely bundling the goals in. I think De Bruyne has just proved he's one of the best players in the world now. I think he can be. I think Ronaldo's probably dipped off a bit this year. Messi's been good. I think he's scored like 27 goals since January, since the turn of the year. It's not even in a full season. So I think he's been outstanding. Some of the other players, I think Mahrez, he's been phenomenal, especially in the Champions League. He's turned into a bit of a big game player for them now, sort of showing up for set pieces and running in, getting flicks on in the box and sort of finishing. He's yeah. How do you see City going into the next one against Chelsea? Because I think is it the FA Cup this Saturday against Leicester?
Well, they rested loads of players. Ford on the bench. Forden was on the bench. He's a shoe in every game now. Any big game, he's in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go on about him because I've been raving about him for 2 years. De Bruyne, Sterling played, and he's a big part player at the moment because he's off the boil. Aguero started. You take a penalty like that when you've played 25 games in the season, you've banged in 20, 30 goals, your confidence is high. You don't do that against a team like Chelsea, who are 3rd in the league, when you've hardly kicked the ball all season. You're going to make yourself look like an idiot. And that's exactly what he did. I thought it was embarrassing. I can't understand how you can have that confidence when you've hardly played in 18 months. You've taken your paycheck every week. You've been injured for a year and a half. You've played the odd half an hour here and there, and you come and do that. I think it's, and as I said, you can do it if you like. We'll talk about Fernandes at United in a minute, and he scored 17 or 18 penalties. If he did it, then fine, because he doesn't. He very rarely misses, and he scored 27 goals this season, or 20 in this season he scored 27 goals. But for somebody to play hardly at all in a year and a half and do something like that, for me was ridiculous. They lost by a goal, and he missed a penalty, but to take it like that and miss a penalty is criminal. And yes, he's leaving at the end of the season, so there's no point really having words. But if I was his manager, I'd have been having words with him after the game saying, what the hell do you think you're doing? You still want to win every game, even though you've put out, a bit part side, not as bit part as United did, but they've put out a side that is worthy of beating anybody else because they're so strong. It's two ways of looking at it. You're playing against the team who you're playing in 2 weeks' time in the Champions League final. So you want to put out the least amount of your first team as you can. So you're not giving any game plan away. You're not seeing how certain players are playing. So when you go back and look at the video analysis for the next 2 or 3 days, they're not going to pick out on how De Bruyne's runs are going when he's playing against Alonso. There's no, you can watch De Bruyne playing all day long on video, or Foden on video, but they're not playing against you. They're playing against other teams. So if Foden is running riot against Man United because Pogba isn't tracking back, then he wouldn't necessarily do that against Chelsea because Chelsea might have a good holding midfielder who stays back. Whereas if they'd played, they would have been able to see that on video. So, and they have, and now they're not going to. So these guys, I think, I'm not sure whether, Stones, Laporte or Diaz played. One of them would have been, but they would have rested their big game players. They've got Newcastle, they've got Brighton, and they've got Everton. So I presume that Friday night and Tuesday, they're going to put out some of those players in each game just to give them game time, wrap them up in cotton wool. Any challenges, do not go in for them. De Bruyne, Foden, Diaz, your best players. We want to win, but we should win on ability. If we don't win, we're champions anyway. They want the Champions League final. That's the icing on the cake for Pep. They've won 3 or 4 premierships in the last 5 or 6 years. They've won the FA Cup. They've won the Carabao Cup in the last 2 or 3 years. This is, the holy grail of a Premier League side, and that'll cement him. That'll cement Aguero and Folklore as their top scorer. It'll cement, Man City where they are now, the best team in Europe. They haven't had they've beaten Paris Saint-Germain. They haven't had an easy run in. So for them to do that, with that squad that Guardiola's built over the last 3-4 years, yes, he's had the money to do it, but there's other teams who've spent £1 billion, like Chelsea, United, Liverpool, 600-700 million. And, it's taken him a while to do that. He's had certain areas which he's needed to improve on, like centre-backs. Now he's got Diaz, who for me looks world-class. So he's there. So for me, he's got those 3 games now in the next 9 days where some of them will play because you've got to keep your match fitness up. You can't just go, right, all of you are rested for 2 weeks. You can't do that because you can lose 20%. So I think they'll play ad hoc in those 2 games. I'd be surprised if any of them play on the Sunday of Everton, 6 days before the Champions League, which we'll talk about Everton later because they're chasing 4th spot. And if it comes down to them winning against Man City to get that 4th spot above Liverpool and West Ham, then that'll be pretty interesting to see who City put out. They're not going to be bothered. They won't care who comes 4th. They're going to be concentrating 1,000,000% on Champions League in... is it going to be at Wembley? They were supposed to announce it.
I haven't seen it. I've heard if they'd announced it yet. They are wanting to host it at Wembley. because I think they can have, is it 8,000 fans if they do it there, something like that. But it's two English sides in the final. Why are you going to have it in Turkey, considering all that's gone on and that?
Obviously, they've got to think ahead. They didn't know who was going to be in the final.
Yeah.
But if they can't have it in Turkey for COVID reasons, because they're now in the red zone, there's no reason whatsoever why you would have 8,000 or 80,000 British traveling to another country to watch two British sides. There's no reason whatsoever. So you have it at Wembley. If half the proceeds go to Turkey because they've lost out on whatever they've lost out on, fair enough. But for a fan's purpose, it would be ridiculous to have it abroad, anywhere apart from Wembley, or Old Trafford, or Principality in Wales, or Hampden Park, anywhere. Just don't have it abroad. It's Turkey that are losing out, so give them some of the money. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
I'm sure UEFA have enough in their back pocket, and considering what they've been saying about fans recently with regard to the Super League, it'd be a bit hypocritical if they wouldn't be willing to move the game. I know quite a lot of politicians and people in the various governing bodies have been quite vocal, so hopefully they'll listen and move it over. But it'd set it up for it to be a really good clash as well. Two English sides in a final at Wembley. It's the Arch now, isn't it? It's not two towers anymore. So under the Arch and under the lights, it's be a Saturday night. It'd be a really good clash, I think.
Saturday the 29th. It's on BT Sports. But I think, it's obviously we can talk about that in a couple of weeks' time. But that's how I feel City will set up now in the next three games. They will just play their second strings. They haven't got a second string. They'll put their second team out, which will be competitive against any other side, in the Premier League. If we then move on to United, obviously they lost against Leicester with their second string. But again, if you've got all these supporters coming out, what are they doing? It's degrading the Premier League. But they obviously know nothing about football. You've got 5 games in 15 days. If you're a manager and you're playing against, that Leicester are going to come third. So you want to be stopping lower sides getting points. So they've got Liverpool now. Thursday they got Fulham, who are pretty much relegated, and they've got Wolves, who are a mid-table side. So same kind of thing as City. They're going to put out, on an ad hoc basis, some first team, some second, just to keep their match fitness up. Because on Wednesday the 26th, they're playing Villarreal in a European final. And so the stuff that I've seen in the papers and on social media about it is just, armchair fans who probably never played the game, who don't know what they're talking about. It makes me laugh. We don't even want to comment back because it's just ridiculous. But yeah, Liverpool, that'll be a good game. I know that there was a big police presence at Old Trafford last night against Leicester to stop any protesting fans, which obviously, again, we spoke about that last week. We don't want to go over old ground. But yeah, one very good stat that I saw this week, we mentioned De Bruyne, but Bruno Fernandes, first full season, 27 goals, 18 assists. Frank Lampard, in his best ever season, 27 goals, 19 assists. And Fernandes has still got 5 games to go. So when anybody questions Fernandes, he gets lost in the big games. It's his first full season, and he will outscore and out-assist Frank Lampard, who was a legend for Chelsea, who was him, Scholes, and Gerrard was the big debate of who's been the best midfielder in the last 10, 15 years. And you've got this skinny Portuguese guy come along and pretty much outdo what Lampard did at Chelsea in the Premier League in his first full season. So for me, and you can only go from strength to strength. They've got Cavani, who's just signed another 1-year contract, who has been outstanding since he's come. But what are your thoughts on Fernandes? bear in mind, obviously, they've got the Euros when he's going to be playing with Ronaldo and other very good Portuguese. And when you play with players like that, you are only going to improve and rub off on the good stuff that they've been doing in training. What are your thoughts on Fernandes so far as an Arsenal fan?
Yeah, no, I think Fernandez has been fantastic this season. I think he scored over 30 goals for Sporting the year before you bought him. So I remember seeing an interview with him. He was, they were complimenting his goal scoring form, and he was like, "I'm not quite happy with it because I think he said 32 last season with Sporting, so obviously he wants to match that." It's a tougher league, the Premier League, but you can see he's driven and he's just done so well in his first season, and I think he's probably a big part of why United are where they are right now. He just works so well in that midfield trio with Pogba, and then is it McTominay or who's it? Sometimes you're playing sitting. Is it Matic or Fred?
There's loads in there. There's
really, you can slot different.
You've got Rashford. You've got Van der Beek if he's, because he played last night. There's that many.
He's been excellent. I think some other players as well, like Shaw and Lindelof, have been really good this season. They've improved quite a lot. Henderson recently as well, for me, he's looked really good when he's deputised for De Gea. I think, would you say he's got the number 1 shirt now practically? Would you say you're going to start him in the cup final, maybe in the Liverpool game? Or
I think he could easily be playing 50% of the games, this season, next season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got less mistakes in him than De Gea. I think De Gea is a very good shot stopper, whereas Henderson is probably a better tactician. His reading of the game, his positioning, looks really good. So he's definitely one for the future. Mm-hmm. Whether it's this season coming or whether it's one more season, I don't know. But yeah, going back to Fernandes, it's a little bit early to compare. It's probably one season too early to compare him right now to Cantona, but his, some of the dummies that he does and some of the no look passes, and he hasn't got exactly the same arrogance as Cantona yet, because Cantona wasn't like it when he first joined at United. But I think another 1 year to 2 years max, and if he carries on the way he's going, he could be going into folklore. I know United chased him for 2 years. They tried to buy him 18 months before, and he decided to stay at Sporting for another year. I know the writing was on the wall because, Sporting are, they've been, and it's an unwritten rule that they've been United's, feeder club for, 7-8 years. That's where, we got Ronaldo after a friendly against them. So, he was coming, but it was delayed, by 12 to 18 months. And when he came in the first few weeks, it was, what was all the fuss about? Because he didn't come in and he didn't come in running. He took a little bit of time. But yeah, absolutely fantastic that what he's done. And as you said, there's that many in midfield. There's 6 or 7 to choose from. We haven't got a Foden. McTominay is a very good, solid player. If we did need to buy, it would be a world-class midfielder. Pogba's either brilliant or he gives the ball away too much and kind of goes to sleep if he's not playing very well. And you can't have somebody like that in the team, and you can't have somebody like that in the dressing room. So for me, we've got Rashford. If it was me being ruthless, I would get rid of Pogba and I would get rid of Martial, because there's no point having 2 world beaters who are probably world beaters 7 out of 30 odd games in a season. Martial was fantastic against Man City. Haven't heard of him since. Whereas you look at somebody like De Bruyne, Foden, Aguero when he's fit, Cavani, these guys, they're scoring week in, week out. They're getting man of the matches week in, week out, as in for 40 games in the season. Whereas Pogba may be world-class you might get man of the match 5 times in a season. If you're world-class, you should be getting man of the match 1 in 3, or disappointed if it's 1 in 4. He doesn't have that, and neither does Martial. So if I was United, chairman, manager, they need to be looking at there's plenty. We've got the money. We've signed Cavani now up front, world-class striker for me. I haven't seen his stats, but scored 2 in midweek, scored 2 the week before. Runs the full pitch for 90 minutes. And he's whatever he is, 33, 34. He's very fit for his age. We've got a decent defence now. All the Maguire haters, I saw a stat on his yesterday, because obviously he's injured now and he's going to be racing towards the getting back for the final and for the Euros. And I saw a stat, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of defender with most tackles, most aerial wins, most clean sheets. There was 6 different stats from the Premier League, and he was number 1 on all of them.
Oh yeah.
So and that was on Sky Sports, and it was yesterday. But yes, he's injured, but he's pivotal in defence. He's got good leadership skills. Lindelof decent, but Eric Bailly, he's too injury prone. So a world class. If you're going to compete with City, who've got they've got Stones, Diaz, and Laporte fighting for 2 places. We've got Maguire, and then we've got an injury prone guy and Lindelof fighting for the other space. So you've got to be looking at a world class centre back. Right back and left back are fine. You've got Wan-Bissaka, Telles, and Shaw fighting for the spots. I think that's fine. Midfield, I say you've got plenty in midfield in depth and somebody to support Cavani. So in effect, a striker, a centre mid, and a centre back, and I think United could be fighting for the title next year. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. The way you've performed this year with the squad you've got, I think that pretty much shows Ole's almost got it right. He just needs those few, like you said, world-class players to drag you over the line in games or put consistent performances in where like Pogba and that haven't. Obviously, I don't watch him week in, week out when like you do, but I think some of the games I've seen with Pogba, like you said, if he's not really sort of passes on going his way and he's not really getting into it, he does just go off the boil, look a bit disinterested and sort of get a bit, he's instead of chasing jog for a minute then turn around the travel. You can't have that if you want into but it's just weird because in the French side, he just looks so good, and he does sort of with Kante make that midfield tick. I don't know if that's more down to Kante because he does do that for Chelsea and he did that for Leicester. But yeah, I think who would you when you say a world class midfielder would I know? So you've got Fernandes, obviously, he's your more free, creative playmaker coming in behind Cavani. Would you want like a world-class sitting midfielder, like a world-class box-to-box midfielder? What type would you be looking for to come in, or have you not got a...
No, I'd 100% be looking for, you mentioned Kante there, setting off Pogba. When you've got somebody like Kante or, even... I think Matic is a couple of years past his best. When he was the unsung hero at Chelsea probably 3 or 4 years ago. Sitting midfielder, you had him, Kante wasn't even there then, so because he was at Leicester. But he was the sitting mid. And then, any of your other midfielders then, they've got the confidence to go forward. So for United to have, as I said, the problem is you need somebody who's, when you've got Pogba in your team and that a perfect example would be, I think it was against Liverpool the last time they played them. I watched the game, and in the space of 3 minutes, he gave the ball away 5 times. And when that's going to happen, you need your other centre mid to be behind to pick up the pieces. He makes some silly, he'll do a step over, go in the opposite direction, and it's so obvious because the guy's like 6'3" and he's gangly. You know what he's going to do. And he was giving the ball away, trying to do a Hollywood pass, giving the ball away. So to be successful, you need to have, like he is in France, somebody like Kante who can run for 90 minutes. He's just a workhorse. Matic isn't a workhorse. He's 6'1", 6'2". He'll sit back, But if he's sitting back and Pogba loses the ball 25 yards in front of him, then the other team have got the ball and they can spray it around you. You know, you need to be, I presume that Kante stays pretty close to Pogba. So if the ball is away, he's a ball winner. You know, he's there to win the ball and then let the creative players do the rest. So I don't know, maybe, I know they were linked with Cruz a couple of years ago, Tony Cruz. You know, he would do well in the Premier League. He's not, but the only trouble is he's not so much a ball winner. Whether you'd have somebody like him and Fernandes with McTominay sitting behind him, because McTominay's got a good engine. He'd need to probably curb his late runs into the box. He'd need to stay behind in the triangle. But yeah, you know, Messi's probably going to go to City or stay with Barcelona. I can't see anybody in the Premier League coming to United who I fancy as a replacement. You know, that if I did a bit of research into it, there's going to be 2 or 3 names that would, you know, that would pop up. You know, maybe an Italian sitting midfielder who is more defence minded to leave, because Fred, to be fair, Fred's improved a lot. Doesn't give the ball away so much. Very good ball winner. So maybe he'll come into his own a bit in the next year. Obviously, all I see is these people, you know, week in, week out. Whether Van der Beek will be there next season and we'll see more of him, because he could be a good foil for Fernandes. It's hard to say, but it's very good that they've got Cavani for another year, so they don't need to worry about their strike force. If they are keeping Martial and Rashford, they're going to learn a lot from him over the pre-season. It's encouraging, but 100% they need a centre back. That's what they need to be looking at. Because I think Lindelof, when he came, he was a right back.
So yeah, moved him in.
They've moved him in, and that was more over desperation rather than you know, it was necessity. Shaw was out for a long time, so they've had to move people about. Wan-Bissaka, for me, is not a great defender, but he's good going forward. You know, as I've mentioned before, Tellez looked good until he got injured. So there's a good squad building there, but that extra 1 or 2 will make a difference. If we move on to Chelsea, obviously Champions League final, lost quite a few games in a row before Lampard went. Good start to the season. Bought Werner, bought Havertz, Chilwell.
Oh yeah, the Leicester left back.
Ben Chilwell. They've bought decent players. What are your thoughts on Chelsea since Tuchel's come in?
I think Tuchel's been a really good appointment for them. I say that we're actually playing them right now. We're 1-0 up. I think it was Smith Rowe that scored for us. But like you said, they have lost a few on the bounce. He scored in there. Oh yeah, he scored quite early actually, 16th minute. So it's the 47th now. So I don't know what we're doing, but it's quite nice to be. I think we beat them around Boxing Day or the day after, somewhere like that. So if we do the double over, I'd be quite chuffed.
Yeah.
Tuchel's come in though, like you said, they've done really well. I think, like with his Dortmund sides, he was always very good at shoring them up defensively, which gives your attacking players the platform to go forward off that. And I think it's really helped with Timo Werner and Kai Havertz. They've sort of come into themselves a bit more this part of the season. Ziyech as well. He got the only goal in the City game to put him into the final. He's done well in Europe as well.
Yeah, good player.
Yeah, they've just I can't remember where they were when they got rid of Lampard, but I think it was 6th or 7th, because it was when Villa, West Ham and Everton were all still doing quite well and up and thereabouts. But he's done well to sort of claw him back from what was turned out to be a rocky season. And you know, Werner wasn't really looking like the player he was when he came over from Leipzig when he first joined Chelsea. Like he was getting caught offside. I know he's quite quick, but he was getting caught offside, a lot of missed time in his runs. I don't know how well he speaks English, so maybe there was a sort of language barrier with the training and whatnot. But yeah, I think some of their signings have actually turned out to perform in the later part of the season, whereas some of the other sides haven't. Arsenal, for example. But yeah, they had the change of goalkeeper as well. With Mendy coming in, he's looked really good. Not a tough penalty save for him the other night though, but yeah, so the things have clicked at the right moment. Not Thiago Santos, sorry, he's a mixed martial artist. Thiago Silva, that's him. He's been a very good sign and shored up the defence. I think last season especially, I wouldn't really know who to look to at centre back for them because they had Rudiger. He wasn't really playing. He was a bit patchy form wise. I think he's been quite good this season though. I think they were pairing him with Christiansen. I think it was because they'd had the transfer ban, so I think it was maybe his second full season playing centre half. And like most Chelsea players that come through the ranks, he'd been loaned out quite a lot. So he played first team football, but not for Chelsea. So it's still a bit of a learning curve. But I think the experience they've added into their backline's really helped with Silva. Goalkeeper change as well. I've never really, is he still the most expensive goalkeeper in the world, Kappa? Or that was only for a while and then Alisson broke the record. Or I got that backwards.
It's one way or the other, but it was a massive fee. I think that Dodorama out in Italy,
Milan.
He might have broken it. But no, yeah, I totally agree. All very good signings. I think they were. I think Lampard was unlucky because Havertz came in and Werner, two very good signings. Havertz hit the ground running. He scored a hat trick in I think it might have been an FA Cup game or a Carabao Cup game. Scored quite a few assists. Young, big reputation coming over. Was it Dortmund? I think he came from Dortmund.
Leverkusen, I think, but he'd been absolutely on fire in the Champions League and in the Bundesliga as well. So.
Yeah, he was awesome. Came over with a big name, did really well, and then caught COVID. She caught COVID, and apparently it was long COVID, so he was out for quite a while, struggled. And to be fair, I watched a couple of his games when he came back. Oh, I don't know, 8 weeks ago maybe, and he looked a shadow of himself. He wasn't playing full games. He wasn't training properly. Same as a couple of the Newcastle lads who'd had the longer version of COVID, and it's taken them quite a while to get back into it. So for him, for Lampard to lose him, I think Ziyech got an injury, so he missed a few games. Pulisic was out injured as well. So that's three key players there, and three. Werner couldn't hit a barn door with a baseball bat. So you got top players there not performing, and they lost. They were losing games, and they got rid of Lampard. Luckily then for Tuchel, he's come in. Werner hasn't started scoring goals. I think he scored two. A couple of offsides that he scored, which were, some of them were 50-50. But Ziyech has come in, Pulisic's back from injury, Havertz is back playing. I think he's playing tonight as well. I don't know about Chilwell, whether he's, in fact, have a quick look. I think, because he'd been injured for a while. No, he's playing tonight as well. Yep. That Billy Gilmore, he had a year out when Lampard was playing. He had a big injury. He's back playing. So it's he's been lucky really to get all his players back. Apart from Werner, all the others are back. Jorginho, he hasn't performed to the ability of his name coming over from wherever he came from. Then you've got who else? Yeah, Zigic is on the bench. Callum Hudson-Odoi came on after half time for Billy Gilmore. But he's had the luck, he's had the rub of the green, that all these players have come back and they brought Silva in. So, they're in the Champions League final. They'll be in the Champions League next year. They're fourth at the moment. Even if they lose against Arsenal, they got Leicester in the FA Cup on the weekend. Then they're playing Leicester in the league. If they beat Leicester in the league, then it puts them up to third. And I can't see anybody catching them then. Liverpool win both their games in hand. They're still going to be 3 points adrift. So, and then they've only got Aston Villa left to finish off the season. So I think a successful season. Obviously, Abramovich wants them to win everything, or you're going to be under the firing squad. But I think Champions League final and qualify for the Champions League next year, and potentially winning the FA Cup final next week against Leicester. They've got to count it as a good season, for me.
Definitely giving yourself a chance at two pieces of silverware. Like we said, a lot of the players that haven't been performing at the start of the season are really coming to their own, or the injuries they've sort of come back from. They can only really build from there, and sort of fall. They've got loads of names in attack and in midfield, sort of build from. I don't know if I don't really know how Chilwell's form's been. I heard a bit of criticism about him mid-season, but I don't know if that was around the time he was coming back from injury.
It's got to be.
I know they
have. Off brilliant.
Yeah, I know they have played Alonso quite a bit when they've been playing. I think they've been playing mainly a back five, so they've been using him as like a wing back. He's done all right, but he's done well, I think. But he's aging quite a bit. He's getting up there, so they're probably going to want to look to bring someone else in, maybe even another centre back. You've got Silva in there, I think Rudiger and Christiansen, but can't really think of anyone else apart from them. Kurt Zuma actually as well. I think he might be playing tonight.
Yeah, him and Aspilicueta, the captain.
Oh yeah, I think Aspilicueta is another one that's aging in maybe early 30s. No,
he is.
But I think he can still put a shift in.
He can, but I think with Alonso, I don't know how old Alonso is, but I think when he came originally as a left back. They put him in as more of a left midfielder, scoring goals, scoring free kicks. Had a fantastic season. Out of favour with Lampard for whatever reason, whether he'd been injured and just couldn't fight his way back in. But I thought he was class. And now he's back in. He's back in favour. When you look at their midfielders now, you've got that Pulisic. He's playing up front tonight because they haven't really got a striker. Giroud's on the bench, and Werner's on the bench. So Pulisic's playing up front. You've got Havertz. You've got Jorginho, Billy Gilmore. Before his injury, he was on a par with Foden. He was running the show when he was playing. Really small little. Is he Scottish or Irish?
Scottish, I think.
Well, very good little midfielder. You've got Hudson-Odoi, who you've got that Ziyech who's on the bench tonight. Well, we haven't even mentioned Mason Mount, who's been class all season. So when you look at their squad depth, it's right up there with United and City. When you look at other, any team below those three, West Ham, Liverpool, even Leicester, who are above them, haven't got a squad like that. Everton, none of them have got squads anywhere near those three. So if they keep all those players and slightly build with maybe one or two, then I think there's your top three next season for me anyway.
Definitely, that's been the story this season, really, though, hasn't it? So who's recruited the best, and sort of all the pieces falling into line for them this season. Like, look, who's still up there: Leicester, Chelsea, West Ham. I wouldn't say Liverpool and Spurs' recruitment or ours has been great this year, but I think we go 8th if we win tonight, so that'd be quite nice. But I think Everton have 2 in hand because they've got 4 to play. Like, who was it? Liverpool's the other team with 4 games left to play. But yeah, I think Chelsea, if they can win the Champions League, that's what, 2 in. Was it 2012 they won the last Champions League with Drogba and Czech and all of them? So that'd be 2 Champions Leagues in about 10 years.
Well, they got to the final against Man United.
Exactly. They've won the title a couple of times in that year and sort of that period as well. A few FA Cups here and there. I think they've done quite well. And especially this season with Tuchel coming in, taking over, not exactly a sinking ship or anything like that. Don't want to be too extreme, but, a team that was wobbling a bit, a few players in and out of form or struggling to get momentum because of injuries, and he's seemed like quite a calm figure coming in, more experienced than Lampard as well. He got PSG to the final last year. I think he's won the league with Dortmund, or like the big Shield, FA Cup, Dutch bloody cup, German cup thing they have. So, he's won trophies and that before. He's more experienced than Lampard as well. We've said before about players getting jobs as managers after retiring, but I think he's done really well. And if he's given a year or two to build a bit of a squad, Chelsea, they probably do have the resources of a City. Maybe I don't imagine Abramovich is going to be out of pocket anytime soon or anything like that. He's probably got money coming out his wet jean pockets and whatnot. They're going through the washing machines. But I think, like you said, United, Chelsea, and City, that's your top three next season. It's just a case of who recruits the best and what happens with City when Aguero's gone. But I don't really think they're going to miss him that much. And if Chelsea can sign those few players we were just talking about, same as United, they could easily compete and make it a bit more. What do you think about Liverpool when Van Dijk's fit? Do you maybe think they could? I think Van Dijk and Gomez, they're looking to get back. Do you think maybe if they bought another midfielder and maybe a striker, they could sort of be up to that level as well? And then you've got your traditional top four back.
To be fair, you look at Leicester. Leicester are third with a much smaller budget. That so-called fluke of them winning the league a couple of years ago. It shows now it wasn't a fluke. They're in the FA Cup final. They're going to be in the Champions League next year. All being well. I say they're third at the moment. They're 4 points behind United. But United and City have got a game in hand, so they could be 7 points behind. As you said, Chelsea at the moment are losing, so they're still behind them. And then West Ham will be 5 points behind them when they play their if they win their game in hand. So I think Leicester will be third. So that there's your top four. I don't even what have they got. I haven't even looked at their fixtures. They've got. When you come down to West Ham will be on. I think they've got Brighton, they got West Brom, and they got Southampton. So those are their three games. So you put a bit of money on them winning their last three games, which I would have thought that would have really put them up there with a good chance of coming fourth or fifth. They've got a very weak last three because Liverpool will have to play. Liverpool have got a game in hand over West Ham. West Ham win their three games. United beat Liverpool tomorrow. West Ham are fourth. It's that simple. Liverpool have got West Brom as well, and they've got Burnley and they've got Palace. So you would pretty much put Liverpool winning them three games. Yeah. So it's a crucial game for them tomorrow night. They win against United, then they've pretty much got a chance of getting into the top. The top four, top five even. But there's so many connotations. I know that you said Arsenal have got up to 8. Everton have got 2 games in hand. Everton win their 2 games in hand, puts them on 61 points. And Liverpool on 57. Liverpool would go on 63. But Liverpool lose against United and Everton win their game in hand. It puts Everton above Liverpool. Which is a massive incentive for their Scouse rivals. So I think it'll be it's just such a very close run in. Even teams in 10th, 11th. We were talking to we got Wayne, the Leeds fan, coming on next week. We were saying probably 8 weeks ago. He was hoping that Leeds would get to 50, and I looked at the running and I thought, they could get 56, 58. And he was like, nah, 50 would be great. I'd be surprised if we can just. They're on 50, and they've still got 3. I haven't looked at their last 3 games, but they've got 50 already. So for a team that's come in first season in the Prem, and they're on 50 points. So Villa have done well. They're on 48, 2 games in hand, albeit against some top teams, but they're going to be above 50. So it's go back to Liverpool. I think it's one of those where last season all the stars aligned. All their players were firing. Mane was firing. Firmino never fires, but he was the provider. Henderson was player of the season. Van Dijk was a rock. They just had one of those seasons where the stars aligned, and it just seemed like there was nothing that could stop Liverpool winning the league. Following season, they're they're hanging on to 6th by the coattails, and they've got injuries. They've got this, they've got that. There's COVID. They like to play in front of a crowd, and they've had a terrible season. Mane's been dreadful since he came back from the African Nations Cup last season. He's done absolutely nothing. So for them to go from nothing to competing in the top 4 next season just because Van Dijk comes back, I can't see it. I can't see. They weren't lucky last season, but they were lucky not to get injuries. Their squad, we've mentioned City, United, Chelsea. We've mentioned 8 or 9 midfielders in each team who would get in any other Premier League team. You look at Liverpool, you've got your Henderson, you've got your top 3 of Mane, Salah, and Firmino. I'm struggling after that. You've got Shaqiri, who can't even get in the first team when they've got a full team. They've got that, what's his name? Not NTT. What's the...
Origi.
Keita. They brought him in last year from, I think, a German side who...
Oh, from Leipzig, I think.
Yeah, he's having a crack.
I've got Wijnaldum, but he's meant to... I think his contract's expiring at the end of this season, so he's meant to be on his way out. Fabinho, he's not been the same player he was last season either, I think.
Who's the guy they brought in? Who's the... they brought another guy in, didn't
Thiago.
Yeah. So
he only got his first goal against, was it Southampton they played the other day?
He's he
only got his
player.
First goal the other day, but he's been all right. But...
Exactly, he's been okay. So you can name those 6 or 7 players, but if one of their top 2 gets injured and you're bringing in any one of those players that we've just named, then their season's finished. Van Dijk wasn't playing, right? That's your defense gone. None of the top 3 are firing. That's your strike force gone. There was nobody else to bring in. Origi doesn't play enough. He's, like you mentioned just now about Pogba with France. You watch Origi playing for Belgium. He's like a world-class player. He's fantastic. Obviously, he's a little bit of a second string now because Lukaku's been playing very well for Inter Milan. But I just think that they would need to strengthen in every department next season. And when I mean every department, I mean defense, midfield, and strike force. They would need to bring in minimum of 1 player per position to compete. They've got Salah, fair play, scored a lot of goals this season. But apart from that, I can't see any standout players whatsoever in the Liverpool team and where they're going to go from here for me.
I think the difference between the Liverpool side and the other 3 who've been mentioning before, they don't really have midfielders that provide that many goals. I think Salah, he's a winger, so it's more of a forward position nowadays. You think United, you've got Fernandes providing goals. Pogba chips in once in a while. McTominay scores a fair few, in fairness. It's City as well. They have goals from everywhere. So, you've got De Bruyne scoring a lot, even when he's playing as a false 9 as well. Gundogan popped up in the new year. He was scoring every week for a while. You look at Chelsea, Mount's been getting into a bit of form scoring. Kovacic a bit hit and miss with his goals. Kante's a ball winner. He's never really been known for scoring, but Ziyech has got a few. Havertz as well, scored a hat-trick in his... It was a Carabao Cup game, I think you mentioned before. It was against a bit of a low side, but still to score a hat-trick in any game is 21, or is he? He's quite young, isn't he? I don't know how old he is.
Yeah.
But I think Liverpool just needs more goals in their side at the minute. Like you said, Firmino, he can be a good player, but he's a false 9. He doesn't really provide goals. He's all right with his hold-up play and sort of playing little flick passes on and so making a bit of space for other players to come in and score, but he just doesn't have the numbers a season to be carried in the team, I think. I thought he played very well last season, but again, Mane, he's just not fired this year that well.
When you're playing in a winning team, you look good.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing with him. And at the end of the day, they're going to come 6th, 7th, or 8th roughly, which is, for a team that's won the league, comfortably last year, it's a massive drop. And I just can't see, they're going to need wholesale changes. You got, as you said up front, last year you had Mane, Firmino, and Firmino, I don't know the stats, but he was scoring goals last season. Up until the middle of the season, he was scoring goals. But, you've got to totally change the strike force. Keep Salah because but I don't know. You're looking at 6, 7 changes and then bringing in extra for depth. So you're probably talking 10 players to be competing in the top 3 next season for Liverpool. For me, that would I.
I think I think Jota's done really well since he's come in. I was quite surprised no one else has picked them up. So I think he could, you got Salah on the right wing, got Jota filling on the left wing. You're after a striker then, and maybe like a Fernandes type figure is like they play sort of a V midfield, so they have 1 sitting and 2 a bit more forward. So maybe like a sort of box to box 10 that can play in behind the striker. That would probably benefit them. No one's actually coming to mind for me right now. Anyone like that, but. Yeah, I think they do need, but from what I've been hearing from a lot of Liverpool fans I chat to at work, John Henry, and I think it's FSG, First Sport, whatever the bloody group that owns them's called, he's not willing to spend the money to bring these players in at the minute. I know they've spent quite a lot over the years, but supposedly a big part of Van Dijk and a few other players was offset by Coutinho. So he's been running it more of a business like, okay, well, we can sell this player for that much and then use that to buy these ones. And, he's built a title winning season for 1 year. I don't think from what I've heard from the Liverpool fans that I've chatted to, I don't think he really, I know he's owned winning teams in baseball and maybe another sport as well. I can't really remember. Don't know, to be honest with you, but I don't think he understands it in football. When you get injuries, like, especially if you lose your 2 centre-backs, one of them's world class and they've played so well together. If you're competing in the Premier League, you need to bring someone high level to come in. Who did they sign when Van Dijk was injured? They had the whole of January. Well, they knew he was injured before January, but they had the whole of January to bring someone in. And they bought like Rakitic, is it Rakitic, the young lad? And they bought a chap in from Preston, I think, as well, who not played above the Championship. So exactly. How can you expect to? I think a good thing for you as well, because they're playing you in a couple of days because the game was postponed. Liverpool aren't going to go to Old Trafford as champions this year, so they haven't been to Old Trafford as champions since the 70s still. So that's a nice little stat you've got over them. Well, but.
No, it'll be interesting, I'd say, but it's for me, it's wholesale changes. You're looking at. People like they got Milner. He's still there. When you're talking that your backup is something. I'm not dissing him because fair play to him. He's a fit guy for his age. But when you're looking at bringing him in to play, to replace your Robertson or Arnold. You got your first 2, and then Milner is your support. You look at somebody like City, and they've got 200 million quid's worth of left and right backs. You need to be, as you said, Henry's not spending the money. You've got big players there now. You've got you've got your Liverpool, you've got your City, you've got United. You've got big money coming for teams like Villa. $1 billion owners who are starting to put their money where their mouth is and starting to build. And if you don't spend money, then you're going to start getting left behind. And just because you won the championship, just because you're the tournament winner, it doesn't necessarily give you a free card to be in top 4 in the following season, which is what's happened with Liverpool this season. It's the same in anything. It's the same in any kind of sport or in any business. If you don't evolve and if you don't stay 1 step ahead, then you'll get left behind. Moving away slightly from sport, a perfect example is, you've heard today that, Debenhams have gone under. Exactly the same thing. You could see 10, 15 years ago that the internet was coming, but oh no, we've been around for 250 years. We'd be okay as a superstore, and they've gone under. Same with football teams. If you don't invest for the future, A good example, United last night, that Adam was playing, 16 years old, first start for United. So they're looking at him 2, 3, 4 years time down the line. You invest in people like that, and you know that in 3 or 4 years time, you're not going to need to go to Europe and spend 150 million on the player because you've already got him. And that's, that's smart thinking. And if Henry is, whatever he is, he's a businessman in America. As you said, he owns, is it Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Tampa Bay Buccaneers comes to mind.
I think that's the Glazer family that own that one.
Not Tampa. He owns a basketball.
He owns a Red Sox. They're a baseball team. I think he owns Boston Red Sox, but I don't know about.
So he owns a couple.
I think he might own a few more. Yeah.
But it's more business out there. It's different, and you've got to have a squad, and it clearly shows that their squad isn't, anywhere near where it needs to be.
I think because the recruitment's quite different in American sports as well, because they have the college drafts and that, so maybe he just assumes like the pipeline of players at a team like Liverpool should come through the youth academy, but that's not always the case, is it?
It's never the case.
I think they have, they have a few coming through. I think Curtis Jones is probably the one that stands out, but you look at City you look at City and Chelsea though, they've got Mount, Foden. Compare that to that.
Exactly. But that's because they've invested. Chelsea invested in their youth team 10, 15 years ago. They had scouts going. You look at people like Zuma, Kante, Rudiger. They've got a youth system where they go to Senegal, Nigeria, stick a scout in there for 3 months, and then you'd be bringing back these 13, 14, 15-year-olds. Remember that? What was his name? John Obi Mikel.
John Obi Mikel, yeah.
No, that was one of the ones about 15 years ago. They stole him off Man United as a 13, 14-year-old Nigerian schoolboy. They've obviously illegally, whatever they've done, paid his family when he was very young, and they've done something underhand, and he was part owned by an agent. So there was a lot of stuff going on there. But they did, they invested in their youth, and it's come to fruition. It's one of those, success stories, and they won the league a few times, as you mentioned, Drogba. He's from one of those countries where a lot of the youngsters were looking up to him and thinking, oh, he's playing for Chelsea, I want to go and play for Chelsea. So that would have helped Chelsea. Liverpool don't have that. As you say, they've got those 3 games coming up. Palace, Burnley, West Brom. They'll win them. They should do. So it's a crucial game against United, who hopefully will have a full strength side out. That's basically them. And if we skirt over the other ones, West Ham, fantastic season. They've got Brighton, West Ham. They've got Brighton, West Ham, and Southampton next 3 games. So if they win those 3, they've got a fighting chance of, West Ham, Champions League. Perfect example of investing last summer in not stupid amounts of money, but 20 odd million here, 20 odd million there, well spent, and they're fighting for 4th. And 3 games, 3 wins, they're going to be in prime spot above Liverpool and Everton. And for me, that's an unbelievable season for me.
Yeah, even if they didn't get Champions League football, even if they just get into the Europa League, I still think they should be really proud of that as an achievement. Like you said, they haven't spent a bumper amount of money on any players. They haven't really bought any standout sort of world-class talents, anything like that. I know they've had a punt in the last few years with like Felipe Anderson and Seb Haller, but they haven't really worked out. I think as well for West Ham as well, the players they've recruited, you look at like Antonio and Bowen that they bought a couple of years ago, they've not been phenomenal throughout the whole of the season, but they've had sort of 4 or 5 game patches where 1 or 2 of them have been firing, and then like Lingard might come in for a few games and he's scoring, and then sort of certain players have had really good runs of form in the right moments for them, and that's really helped them this season. And it's down to the recruitment. It's probably down to Moyes being in there for I don't know how long he's been the manager there now, but I know he's it's his 2nd stint there, but he's been there for a little bit now. Knows the players. He's working well with the owners because the recruitment aspect is clearly working. I think they've done very well, and that's why they moved to the Olympic Stadium as well, isn't it? Because those big European nights at West Ham, and moving in the right direction, like Leicester have been. But I think some fans and some owners just assume, you get a big stadium, you get a bit of money coming in, you sign a few good players, things are just going to click overnight. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't, and they've just built and they've done really well this season, I have to say.
Yeah, I think
they're winnable games as well.
They need to build, to we've mentioned the top three there. To break into that top three, they need to invest in every area. I said they've got good players. Lingard is Lingard going to be? I'd be surprised if he's there next season. He's obviously on loan from United, so United could bring him back. Whether they want him back, whether they're thinking of cashing in on Pogba and bringing him back, I don't know. But obviously, we spoke about United. But yeah, so they would definitely need to invest to be top four next year. But yeah, awesome season. The other thing that I haven't looked at is when an English team wins the Champions League, is there going to be an extra spot there for somebody in the Champions League next year? If United win the Europa League, is there going to be an extra space? I haven't looked, so I don't know what the score is with that, to be fair.
That's a good question, actually, because I think, whoever wins the FA Cup, the 7th spot will open for the extra Europa, but would they have 5 English teams and then would it be another 4? Would they have 5 in 2 competitions? Would they be able to get away with that? Because I know they always moan all the time that they have 4 English clubs in both tournaments anyway.
I know that there was something a few years ago regarding certain teams trying to get in because United won, or if Liverpool won the Champions League, it opened up something else. So that's another equation to look at.
You're trying to give me false hope that Arsenal are going to get into Europe, aren't you?
Yeah, they've got. Well, they might have a chance through the back door. But then Everton, they've got Villa tomorrow night. They've got Sheffield United. They've got Wolverhampton. So 3 very winnable games. And last game of the season is City, who, as I said, 4 days before, or not, 5-6 days before they go into the Champions League final. So they will, without a doubt, have a second string side out. So they've got a good chance there of winning their 4 games and putting them in the Champions League. For me this season, they've been pretty consistent. They've lost at crucial times where they could have really cemented the top 4 and been above West Ham by now. Recruitment, massive coup to bring in James Rodriguez, from Bayern Munich, Colombian, fantastic in the World Cup. Brought his name into the transfer market, single-handedly done well for Colombia. I think, Real Madrid bought him for stupid money, fell out with Zidane, like what Bale did, gets bought from Bayern Munich. He was on the radar of United at the time, but they wouldn't want to pay the 30 million for him. And to be fair, he's come in. He hasn't set the world alight, but he's obviously doing something with Richarlison. Because otherwise they wouldn't be where they are, because they've got a lot of average players.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me as well, for Everton, the other player that's really stood out this season, especially, has been Calvert-Lewin. I think he's had a bit of a patch, maybe last month or 2, where he hasn't been scoring, but they played West Ham on Sunday. He got the only goal. I think he got one in the game before, or the game before that maybe. But I can't remember who he's been working with. I think it's Duncan Ferguson, Big Dunk, the old Everton striker. But he's been working with him on his finishing. And he does seem like he's become a bit more of a tenacious player in the box. Like he's a bit more willing to sort of jump for every header and sort of chase the flick-ons and balls into the box that you might not win. But that's what you need to do in the Premier League. If you want to score 20 goals a season, you need to be looking for those extra little goals you can pick up from sort of lapses of concentration and little flicked headers. Can't remember what podcast it was on again, but I heard a stat about the ratio of goals from corners, I think goals from direct corners is like a 2% chance of you score a goal. But if it's a corner where there's a flick on and then sort of the next there's a flick on, it's not like directly from a corner, it like doubles. So it's like a 4% thing. Don't know why I pulled that out from. But like he's really come into his own. I think the signing of Decore as well was one that's gone under the radar a bit as well. Watford's, there must have been a relegation clause in his contract, but he's been really good. He's tightened that midfield up. Sigurdsson as well, he's been performing really well, and I think he's deputised a bit for Hammers when he has. I think he's had a few injury problems. He's always has through his career, I think. But he's a set piece taker as well. He has been a match winner for Swansea, and I think for Spurs for a bit when he played for them. So like you said, a lot of average players have performed really well this season. I wouldn't say anyone really stands out in defence for me for them either.
No.
Maybe Luca Dean. He's more going forward, I'd say, though, than defensively. But they've got really half decent, solid players playing very well. I don't personally massively rate Jordan Pickford either. I think he's too error prone. Not a big fan of him. If I was English, I'd be begging for Nick Pope to start for England or Henderson. But he's done really well. You can see why a lot of people praise him. I think he had a good run of clean sheets for a while earlier in the season when they were knocking around the top four.
Still. Shot stopper, and he's a good shot stopper. But yeah, too many errors. When you look at somebody like him, you need consistency. And I'm just trying to think of the last consistent England goalkeeper. Even people like David James, not David James, David Seaman. He was there.
He had a mistake in him, didn't he?
Yeah, there was always a mistake. There was always a mistake that you think was going to be made. You look at somebody like, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of a keeper. I'm going back, people like Peter Shilton, Ray Clements, even Nigel Martin for Leeds. He was in the England squad. What's his name? There's a Scottish guy as well, Jim Leighton, who played for Man United. He was just, a Scottish keeper. There's been keepers there. Pat Jennings for Spurs, who was the Irish international for years. Just consistent. And when you got, or like Alisson, when he in his season for Liverpool, and I suppose Ederson now, if you've got a keeper who you can trust. Where De Gea did for a few years, which he doesn't now, you're going to give your defense confidence. And if you've got a keeper behind you like Kepa or De Gea at the moment, you're going to want to keep the ball away from them, and that's the problem. For me, with Pickford. And especially when you're playing in an international, and you're practicing with them for like weeks beforehand, and he's going to make mistakes in training. We let one in, and you're thinking, oh Jesus, I've got, I'm in front of him. Whereas opposed to Pope or Henderson, I think they're a lot more consistent. And 100%, I'd be looking at one of them too before Pickford.
Yeah. Do you think Pope or Henderson have done enough for the case? Maybe, because I think the Southgate's probably already quite set on who he's going to start in the Euros, but I think they've got either 2 or 3 games. I'm not quite sure specifically, but do you think either of them have put in a real case for the number 1 jersey for the summer?
I think it depends on how people look at things. If it was me, I'd be looking, Henderson is number 2 at the moment to De Gea, but it doesn't mean that he's worse than Pickford. If Pickford was at Man United, he'd be second string. He wouldn't be in instead of De Gea. Pope's there, consistent season. They need to be looking at the season on the whole, as opposed to who's on form with 4 weeks to go. If 4 weeks to go, if you're playing against, if you're Everton and you're playing against. Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal, then you're going to concede goals. Whereas Everton are going to be playing Sheffield United, Aston Villa and Wolves. So if Pickford has 3 clean sheets, it's not because he's world class, it's because he's playing against the bottom team in the league and 2 teams that are in 10th and 12th who haven't really got a strike force apart from Ollie Watkins. So, you can't look at that. They've got to look at, the season on the whole. They've got all the stats in the world. How many handling errors, how many goals have been conceded, as you said, from corners or free kicks, how many were the fault of the keeper. So they must be doing the analysis and looking at breaking everything down and seeing how it's gone. How many goals have been scored directly from a 40-yard kick from the goalkeeper or a throw out, like Allison last year was a provider, Edison this year. It's a big picture that they've got to look at. And for me, Pope and Henderson would be there or thereabouts. And whether they need to do anything else, what you need to do and what you need to show, they've had 9 months to show that. So to say that you need to do something in the next 4 weeks, they shouldn't need to. And that's my take on it.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at Wales's goalkeeper situation, our two best goalkeepers aren't actually playing first team football because Hennessy doesn't play for Palace, Ward doesn't play for Leicester. So at least England have got a bit more of an idea who they're going to. Yeah, but exactly. Like you said, this is a stage they want to know now who's going to be filling the 11 slots. You're probably going to have the plans for 3 group games in your head by now and who's going to come on depending on what's happening during each game. Who is in England's group, actually? It's Scotland. We've completely digressed from the Premier League now. Should probably do the Euros a different time.
Yeah, we've got to use a different time.
Got about a month for it.
But that's, to be fair, that's we've done the top 6 now. We've done who's looking good for Champions League spots and everything. We can talk about the Champions League probably. It's the 29th, so the week after next. We've done our 2 hours for tonight. So what we can do is I'll get a rugby guy on next week to talk about the British Lions squad. I'll actually have a look at that in more depth because I haven't really looked at player for player who's in and who's been in. I know Sexton's been unlucky and a couple of players have missed out who I thought might have been in. We discussed it obviously with all those other players that came on, the Welsh players, and 4 or 5 weeks ago, and some of them got some of the wild cards in there, like Bundy Ake from Ireland and stuff like that are in. So we can get a couple of people in next week to talk about that, and we'll have Wayne Price on to talk about the football. But no, it's interesting to see what's going to play out in the next 3 or 4 weeks in the football, and who collects those last couple of Champions League spots, who wins the FA Cup, and who wins the Champions League. So if it's we'll get them on next week, and then the week after we'll get on a Chelsea fan and we'll get on a Man City fan to talk about the Champions League final, because that'll be another one. Shows how strong the Premier League is compared to European football when you've got 3 out of 4, nearly 4 out of 4.
I was going to say, let the side down, didn't we?
But to get to the semi-final is an achievement, especially with the season that Arsenal have had. But it's good to it shows, and I think the extra thing then is when it comes to the transfer market now in the summer, and we've got 3 teams in the finals, we're going to have all those teams in the Champions League next year and the Europa. Anyone that wants to come in the Premier League and play for those sides, they're guaranteed Champions League football, which is another plus. And it's a vicious circle where it's a merry-go-round where you're going to get more and more come into the Premier League on the back of the success, which will make it more successful the following year. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword for the European teams. They're going to lose players, I reckon.
Yeah, with people saying how dominant City have been this year as well, you need those players to come into like United, Chelsea, Liverpool that we've been discussing today to level up the competition. So it's not a Bundesliga situation where City are running away with it for like the next 5-10 years. But I don't think that'll probably happen. Like you said, the caliber of the Premier League, there's always we're always going to be biased a bit as well, probably because we live in the UK, we watch English football more than any other. But it is the best league in the world, and that's why so many people around the world watch it. That's why lot of these billionaire owners want to come in and buy the teams and be a part of it because it's just so successful and historic. And yeah, it's shaping up really well. And the Champions League it's going to be a good final as well, I think, and it just shows. But that's as long as England don't win the Euros, a bit of a controversial opinion, but they look like they might have a chance.
Yeah, no, I say it'll be good to break down the Euros in a few weeks' time. I think that's in June, isn't it? That's going to be in June.
Yeah.
So.
Starts about a month, but that's the thing. There's always a big chunk where the football ends and there's nothing, so it's nice to have the Euros sandwiched into a condensed season.
Definitely.
A bit more.
Definitely. Well, let's say so next week we get in a rugby player in, and we get in a football player to talk about the what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. You've been listening to Randolph and Martin on Sportinarium, Friday nights 5 to 7. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Next week, as I said, the British Lions will probably be the focal point with a bit on football, and hopefully we might be talking about an exact date, time, and destination for the Joshua Fury fight. It seems like we've been talking about it for 6 months, but it looks like it's finally we finally got to the horizon, and we'll take it from there. Good to talk to you, Matt, and see you next week, same time, same place, with your Welsh flag.
Lovely, mate. Enjoyed it. Speak to you next week.
Cheers, Mark. Ta-ra.